language, I greet you with a warm handshake from my heart, each one of you. And my traditional Tituan name is a little wise one who makes a mark. Mila Obada. Pardon? A little wise one who makes a mark. Makes a mark, you know, like writing. I've been staying with Paula and Jim Perkins. And it's been wonderful. Thank you. I really want to thank you for hosting me. They have the best hotel in town.
A lot of people here know that.
With gourmet meals, you know. I came here to lose weight, and I don't think I'm going to.
On the walk.
On the walk. On the walk. So I told Jim, I said, and Paula too, I said, you know, sometimes when I tell this presentation, this one is just about the abandoned uranium mines. I give other presentations as well. But this one about the abandoned uranium mines is, it's kind of tough, it's hard, and I often feel like I'm the messenger of doom, you know. But I'm a messenger, is what I am. I'm just a messenger coming to ask for your help. Ask for your help, and when I get finished, then you'll know why I'm saying this. We have been for years calling this area right here, Montana, North Dakota, Wyoming, where am I at? South Dakota right here. This is all South Dakota. Nebraska, Iowa's over here, Minnesota's up here. Kansas will be down here. Colorado's right here. Okay. We've been calling that America's Secret Chernobyl for quite a while. And this is only one of the issues why we call it that, and this is the abandoned mines issue. Originally, my people, the Great Sioux Nation, we say Ocheti Shapui. That means seven council fires. There were 7 sub-nations of the Ocheti Shapui, the Great Sioux Nation. In 1492, this is the territory that we occupied. But in an indigenous way, we lived with natural law. So there were many other nations within here also. If you look at a naturally occurring field, there's going to be a dominant grass or a dominant plant. And there will be other kinds of plants in there too, and they grow and they help each other. Well, we were the dominant nation in this whole area. It's huge. We went all the way to the Atlantic Ocean here, right around the Great Lakes right there. We knew the Iroquois Confederacy up here. We knew the Navajo Nation down here. We knew who they were. They knew us too. They knew who we were. Next one. By 1868, this is an old map from the USGS. It was made in 1911. Just prior to 1868, with the colonization occurring every which way, north, south, east, west, our Great Sioux Nation then was down to this area. Now, our Great Sioux Nation speaks 3 dialects. The Dakotas, the people who speak the Dakota language are here in the eastern part. There were 4 of them, 4 sub-nations that spoke the D dialect. In the middle here, and some part of it was down here too, were the N speakers. We call them the Ihantoa and the Ihantoana. In American language, they say the Yanktons. But we call them the Ihantoa and the Ihantoana. And they spoke the N dialect, Nakota. And there are still a few left up here in Canada that speak the N dialect. And if you notice on this map, it covers 14 states and 3 Canadian provinces. There was a handout went around, and a lot of this information I'm telling you is in that handout. If you don't get one, let me know and we'll try to get you one. Now this, starting from here, all the way up there, this other slash marks this way, those are the Tituan. They're called the Tituan. That's what I am, Tituan. We speak the L dialect, the Lakota language. And because when first it was the French. We had our first treaty with the French. We bumped into them way up here in Canada someplace, closer by the Great Lakes. And the people they ran into spoke the D dialect, and so they called them Dakotas, and they still kept calling them Dakotas, and for a long time they called us all Dakotas. And until they finally learned that, no, we don't all speak the D dialect. And of the L speakers here, the Lakotas, we were the biggest then, and we still are now. By then, in 1868, many of the people on the eastern side had almost become extinct. Of all the 7 sub-nations, we do try to get together once in a while, but the last meeting we had, there was one person there that was from one of the nations, Wakpekute. They are a D speaker, and there was only one person who was part Wakpekute, another tribe involved in this. So we don't know if the Wakpekute have totally become extinct or not, but we're having trouble finding descendants that are Wakpekute. These, the Lakotas, the L speakers, the Titua, we had 7 bands of the Titua, besides the 7 sub-nations. And of those bands, one of them was the Oglalas, and that's what I am, Oglalas. Our contact, as the contact kept coming this way and this way, our nation is still the biggest remnant that's left. We still speak the language. We still have our culture. I am here in traditional clothes rather than American clothes, so that you will realize that, yes, I am a real Indian. I'm a real one. And I know my history, I know where I came from, and this is what we're supposed to do, is teach our children and grandchildren, so they will never forget where they came from and who they are. Just a teensy bit of our history. I don't know how many of you know about the Custer fight. We call it the Custer fight. The Battle of Little Bighorn, Custer fight. My grandmother's grandmother was there. It's that close for us. My other great-great-grandmother was at the Wounded Knee Massacre in 1890. She, my grandfather, one of their daughters. So it's not that far away for us. We are probably the people who have the most recent white contact in North America. And so our history goes back not that far, 150 years ago. Yeah, my ancestors were living the way we were supposed to live. And so when I come in my traditional dress, it's out of respect to who I am. I always tell people, this is the real me. This is the real me, not me in my American clothes with my hair fixed in a different way. This is the real me. Well, I'll get to how many of us there are left and everything. This was the last 2 treaties that we made with the United States, and by this time it was mostly Tichuan people. Tichuan, the ones that speak the Lakota language. The 51 treaty, if you notice, Nebraska came down into Kansas, came into Colorado, Wyoming, South Dakota, North Dakota up there, and Montana. Now what they did was, the original 51 territories are this dark area. And then when they wanted to put a railroad through Nebraska, then they pushed us up further north. And so the hash marks are still our unceded territory. We never gave it away. We never ceded it to anybody. It's for our absolute and undisturbed use and occupation, as well as this, all of western South Dakota. All of western South Dakota is covered under the 1868 treaty, and it was called the Great Sioux Reservation. The Great Sioux Reservation. When I was growing up, and how I learned about the treaty was from my grandmother, and she told me, you can live any place you want in western South Dakota. You will still be within the Great Sioux Reservation. You can fish any place you want from the east bank of the Missouri River. And you can hunt to the summits of the Little Bighorn Mountains, and you will still be within our treaty territory. And one of my jobs as a spokesperson for the Sioux Nation Treaty Council is to get our territory back. Yes. Okay, next one. So here, this is the 1868 territory that you saw before. This is the, these distances. When I tell you how far these distances are, you're going to be surprised. But this is all of western South Dakota right here. This portion was added on, and there is a reservation on that side. It's another long story. I have a whole bunch of long stories, so I won't go into it. But the Crow Creek Reservation is over on that side, and then there's a number of other ones. These are called reservations, but the original term and how they were made were prisoner of war camps. I come from POW Camp 344. See, now, this map is from the U.S. Forest Service. And this shows, remember our treaty territory, keep those in mind, 51 and 68, those boundaries. This shows North Dakota, Montana, Wyoming, South Dakota. And inside these little purple lines are our POW camps. Standing Rock Reservation, Cheyenne River Reservation, Lower Brule Reservation. Remember on that map you saw that little square went out? That would be Crow Creek over here. There's also Flandreau and Sisseton reservations on that side. But I'm talking about a treaty territory, which is the east bank of the Missouri River over here to the summit of the Little Bighorn Mountains. Lower Brule, Rosebud Reservation, and my POW camp, 344, Pine Ridge Reservation. We just looked today. Massachusetts can fit in my reservation. These are big areas. Okay. We can't get help from the CDC because we only have 800,000 people in this state. We're the fourth least populated state, thanks to Paula, of the whole United States. I know Wyoming has less people than we do. I think North Dakota might have less. I'm not sure about Montana. It might have less. These are probably the least populated states in the whole United States. Whenever I talk about South Dakota, because people usually don't know where it is, I say, now listen to the weatherman. He stands there and he says, the West Coast over here, the East Coast over here. Nobody talks about what's behind him. That's South Dakota, North Dakota, that's the Northern Great Plains. Okay. See, the 68 Treaty Territory. So this is our Defenders of the Black Hills, our little environmental organization. We work on issues in here, plus it goes down down to Colorado and Kansas. That's a huge territory because Massachusetts can fit right in here. See how big it is? Massachusetts. South Dakota, this South Dakota right here is 10 times, you could put Massachusetts in there 10 times, at least. So you see the wideness and then the least amount of people. Because in my reservation, there might be 30,000 of us. Just think if Massachusetts only had 30,000 people. Okay? But that doesn't mean that's our total population because it's not. There are many policies, federal policies that came down, relocation, and so a lot of our people live all over the United States. Denver, Chicago, Los Angeles, New York even, Boston, all over. So our even though maybe 30,000, 25 to 30,000 live at Pine Ridge, that's not the whole Oglala population. It would be more. Rosebud right here has about 15,000, Cheyenne River about 15,000, Standing Rock maybe about 10,000. So you start adding up all together. If we really pulled everybody in, including all the Dakota people that live up in Canada, Lakota too, then it might come out to 100,000 if we were lucky. If we were lucky. But how many of those have been decolonized? Most of them are still very colonized, and again, that's a whole other story. What this map is from the Forest Service, and all these yellow dots, all these yellow places, all of them are abandoned open pit uranium mines. An open pit uranium mine, you just dig a big hole, you take out the uranium, and they left it. All of these are abandoned. And these purple lines, I put these purple lines in to show the watersheds, to show the rivers, and to show where these rivers go. Up here, with all these mines up here, this river goes through the Standing Rock Reservation. There are 3 villages here that used to drink the water. There is still a village here at the mouth of where it goes into the Missouri River, where they still drink the water today. We have done water tests there, testing for uranium and other radionuclides. These tests that we do cost $450 to $650 because of what we ask for. We don't just want to know if uranium is there. We want to know the isotopes. Because if we know the ratio of isotopes, then we know whether it's naturally occurring or it's mined. And if it's mined, then we know where it's coming from. And in this case, the water here, the isotopes, they're coming from these abandoned mines here. This is Cheyenne River Reservation. This river is called the Morrow River. There are 4 villages on that river. Whether they drink the water or not, I don't know. I haven't had time to go to them and get the water tests because they're too costly. But I know that already. I did do one right here, and there was uranium there. The horses at the place, the people that I went to, their horses won't drink out of that river. They didn't know why. They won't drink that water, and it has uranium in it. This is called the Belle Fourche River. It starts over here in Wyoming. Look at all of these yellow dots here in Wyoming. Some more, and then it comes on, and it hooks up right here with the Cheyenne River. Now the Cheyenne River, look at all these yellow dots here. Look at these. This is southwestern South Dakota, northwestern South Dakota, and these are the 2 areas I will talk about, although we have other kinds of data. So you won't be here all night, listening to it. And then here, see this Cheyenne River touches Pine Ridge Reservation, and it goes up, and it's the southern boundary for the Cheyenne River Reservation.
Are those all the same mining company that came and did that thing and then just left?
No. They were different mining companies. Sometimes they were just private individuals. Sometimes an old rancher went out in his field and took a backhoe and took his shovel and put the uranium in his pickup truck and drove it up here to Bowman, North Dakota, or down here to Edgemont, South Dakota, and had it processed.
So there was no education. People didn't know what they were doing.
No. This started in the 60s, and it quit in the beginning of the 70s when the price fell out of uranium. Boom, they stopped. They all moved away. They left.
They didn't stop because of education. They stopped because the price dropped.
Right.
Wow.
Price dropped, and they left all these abandoned mines. Up here in this area that pollutes both Standing Rock and Cheyenne River, there's 103 abandoned mines. And I'm going to show you one. There's 397 abandoned uranium mines and prospects. Prospects are when they could take a backhoe and they dug and they couldn't find any uranium, or maybe they found such a small trace they decided not to do it. But they left it. They left it open. And so there's in Montana 397 abandoned uranium mines and prospects. North Dakota, a total of 113. And this 103 refers to these right here. South Dakota has a total of 272 abandoned open pit uranium mines, just in that one state. Down here, right, this little yellow dot right here, 169 abandoned uranium mines. Over here in Wyoming, a total of 2,103. So these are not just little dots representing one mine. They're dots representing a whole bunch of mines. These black dots that you see right here, those are other kinds of mining. And what I don't even have on here is all the coal strip mining. I told you I do different kinds of presentations. I'm trying to stick to the abandoned mines tonight. So where these black dots right here, this whole area right here, that's the Black Hills, sacred Black Hills, sacred to us. This is the Riley Pass mine in up there in northwestern South Dakota. It's one of the mines. There's 106 of them up there. You can drive into this mine. I used to, well, you can't anymore. They finally put a warning sign up, but I have driven into this mine. I've walked into this mine many times. There's 1,400 microrems per hour. of radiation coming out of this mine. And it's real soft dirt. It's real soft, so the wind can pick it up. We're a very arid area where I live. There's hardly any rain. And now we're in a severe drought. We have been for about a year and a half now. A real severe drought. And it's worse than, the drought right now is worse than it was in the 1930s when the Dust Bowl came. So it's gonna get bad, and it's predicted this drought's gonna last about 10 years. So anyway, this is the Riley Pass mine. Notice these things up here, these rim rocks up here. I'm going to be talking about some more rim rocks.
What rim rocks again, please?
Rim rocks. These
Edges.
like they're tables, they're high tables, we call them rim rocks. Yeah. This is a warning sign that goes into the Riley Pass mine. It's the only one that, of all these mines, the only one that has a warning sign, because we fought with the Forest Service so long about this Riley Pass mine, and we made it so public. And so they finally got with Kara McGee, and they were going to do a cleanup of this Riley Pass mine. They put a sign around it. They put a little fence and then the sign. I mean, you can crawl over it, which we did. We've gone in there the next time. But the sign says, caution, radiation area. Radiation levels in this area are elevated. No more than 1 day within a 1-year period should be spent in this area. No more than 1 day in a 1-year period in this area. No camping. But this sign came because of us hollering about this. This sign has only been there about 6 years, 7 years.
So the whole area is that hot?
Yes. I'll show you some more. 5 miles away from here, the Forest Service offers on the website, U.S. Forest Service, Custer National Forest out of Billings, Montana. 5 miles away from here. Picnic Springs Campground. They don't tell people. At the highway, they should have warning signs. Warning, you're going into a highly radioactive area. There's nothing. The people, the teenagers that live around there, you know, they go up there and they party and everything because nobody goes up there. The ranchers are allowed to lease it out because it's federal land, it's Forest Service land. I've been in there. I have a picture of me standing next to this, but it's such an ugly picture of me. My hair's blowing all over again. Okay. This, behind here, behind this, if you could, you know, like jump over that, is that Riley Pass mine. Is the Riley Pass mine. Now, if you were driving on a road, you would be coming up from the highway about, 2-3 miles, and then you would come to a road. This is about where I'm standing right here, is about 1/4 mile away from that. And then you would go on the road, it would go over here, and it goes back, so you can drive back into those mines, and there's a whole bunch of mines back. The reason why I bring this picture is because this is a sacred place. This whole area that they mined was a sacred place. This is called overburden. What they do at these sites is they push the topsoil off, but they just push it off of that table. Push it off, so it's all radioactive. And it's very soft dirt. And so then you can see how deep the erosion has occurred. There was an erosion ditch. It's not in this picture. Oh yeah, it is. The start of it is right here. This ditch right here, as you see this grass is in front of it, but if you could follow that ditch, that's from 8 to 10 feet deep, that erosion ditch. And all the water coming out of there is radioactive.
Is it yellow? They talk about yellow cake?
Yellow cake is in there.
The
Yes.
yellow is related to the yellow cake.
Not necessarily. In this area, it's fariniferous lignite. It's mixed with coal. So that's why you have this gray color here, because it's mixed with coal. The uranium is. The people that live in that little town right close by called Buffalo, South Dakota, when this was going on in the 60s and early 70s, they'd load up their pickup trucks with this uranium, take it into town. There was a place where they would actually just dump it out, pour gasoline on it, and start it on fire. After all the coal burned off, then they would shovel what they got into their pickup trucks and then drive to North Dakota or down to Edgemont, South Dakota to the processing plant.
Charmaine, can you just clarify for me when you said it was, I think you said 1,400 or 14,000?
1,400 microrems per hour.
And is there, can you compare that to what would be considered a more
What's safe?
livable,
No radiation.
No radiation, no doses.
So, and it's
1,400 micrograms per hour.
So how complicated would it be to have a sign like that that you got on that gate in front of all the mines?
Right, that's what we're asking for. They wouldn't do it.
They would do it.
Oh, wait. Okay. So this whole area is, there is a major sacred site right here. And over here is a burial site, and this is that radioactive overburden that they pushed off. At one time, this rimrock was probably that high on both sides. And there were we call spirit writing, petroglyphs on all of these rimrocks. There is still a petroglyph on this side over here. I was asked to come here years ago because of this burial site. They were doing an EIS for oil wells, because all around this area are oil wells. And they wanted to do some more oil wells, but the oil companies were concerned about this radioactive runoff coming off of these mines. And so the Forest Service needed to build a waste pond to catch the water. And so they wanted to do it very near this burial site, and the Forest Service archaeologists contacted a lot of us and told us about them wanting to do this waste pond, and what did we think about it? And so I got the EIS and I started reading it, and I saw, uranium mines, what is this? You know, uranium mines? I was just stunned. And so I went there, and that's when they took us in there. We drove in there. The Forest Service drove us in there. There was no warning signs anyplace. We drove our cars in there where that 1,400 micrograms per hour is. You know, we drove in there. We got out of our cars in our tennis shoes and our, little clothes and regular clothes, and we walked around in there. And we got back in our cars and we left. But I was so stunned when I found out about these uranium mines that, we looked at the burial site and we said, no, you can't put your waste pond there. But while we were looking around, because we were walking all over here, because we knew this was a sacred place, that's when we found this major sacred site right here. And it connects with this up here. And there is some more coming down this way. We brought a holy man there to talk to us about this whole place. And he told us then that our people knew about this. And there were hundreds and hundreds, probably thousands of caves in this area. It's huge. It's a huge area. I'm only showing you one little part of it. These caves had petroglyphs written on the insides. There were gifts in there. They were prayer sites, places. And some of the nations that came, because we weren't the only nation that used this, some of the nations that came also had some of the caves used for burials. So they were used for many reasons. The first vandal that came to this place was George Armstrong Custer. And he vandalized one of the biggest caves there. And so now this whole area has been really, really destroyed. And all of these abandoned mines, the water comes off, the dust comes off, we all breathe it in. Because the wind comes from the north, or comes from the west, or comes from the northwest, and comes right down on the whole state of South Dakota. But it doesn't stop there. It goes into Minnesota and Iowa, and it keeps coming east, And with that jet stream that comes here, and it comes to South Dakota, and then it comes right up on Massachusetts. Maybe you're breathing in our wonderful air. Next one. I had to show you this. About where that Riley Pass mine is about, as the crow flies, if you go straight from this school to where the Riley Pass mine is about 5 miles. This is called the town of Ludlow. If you go look on a South Dakota map, you'll see Ludlow. And all Ludlow is a school. And over here is a combination post office, restaurant. It's a rural area, and so school buses bring all the kids. This is an elementary school into this school. Why I bring it to you is to show you this. 500 yards away. This right here, if you can see, I don't know if you can see it, it's a little yellow. Yellow, okay, that's another abandoned uranium mine, and it's located on private land, not on Forest Service land. It's sitting wide open, it's huge, it's huge. 1170 microrems per second. I work with the nuclear physics professor from the University of Michigan. Her and my meeting is another miracle thing that happened, you know, another long story. But she's worked with us, and when I showed her this study that was done on the Riley Pass mine, because the Forest Service did that 1,400 microrems per hour, that's from the Forest Service hiring a contractor to go in there and do the study. And that was in 1992. So when I first met this professor, I showed her this information about one mine. I mean, at that time, I thought there was only 29. So I showed her the information, and she said, there has to be an error. It can't be 1,400 microrems per hour. And I said, well, I don't know. The Forest Service gave this to me. She said, well, it has to be an error. So a few years later, she came back with some of her students, graduate students in nuclear physics. And I told them, I said, don't go into those mines if you plan on having children. Do not, you young people, do not go in there. I said, and realize that if you do go in there, you might be opening yourselves up for cancer. And I said, because I'm very concerned for young people going in there. We do still hold ceremonies at that sacred site, but we tell young people, don't come with us. Don't come with us. Anyway, so we couldn't get into the Riley Pass mine that day because it was raining too hard. And the road is just a dirt road, you know, and it's real windy. And getting in there was really hard, so we couldn't get in there. And so we went back to Ludlow, and we were parked out in front, and they were running in getting, I said, don't drink the water. So they would get sodas or whatever, you know, something else. And I said, we really should have masks on to breathe in, because we're breathing in this bad air. But we didn't. Anyway, they went in there, and the professor went in there, and she asked, who owns this private mine up here? And here he was sitting right there. He said, I do. She said, I'm so-and-so, I'm a nuclear physics professor, I have all these students. We can't get into the Riley Pass mine, can we go check yours out? He said, sure. So he let us go in there, and then they crawled up in there. But I stayed down in the car because I've been in too many of these, and I probably have too much radiation in me now, because remember, it's cumulative. And we are at the start. We're at the very, very start. This is where they mine the uranium that comes for your nuclear power plants. They went in there, and when they hit 1,170 microrems per second, the other professor they were with said, let's get out of here. We've got to get out of here right now. It was so high, and it could be higher. But where they hit it, they said, no, we're not going any further. We're getting out of here. It's too high.
So it could have been more.
It could be more. It could be more, but you'd need the equipment, the hazmat suits to go in there and really get a good reading. And the EPA knows all about this. All the federal agencies know this, all about this, but they haven't done anything. I called the CDC years ago and asked them to come do a study for the health, and they said, no, we can't come to South Dakota because you don't have 1 million people. We only have 800,000. And our nation, I mean, what about our nation? We can't go anyplace else. That's our last homeland. That was our traditional, our ancient, goes back tens of thousands of years, maybe hundreds of thousands of years. We're not going anyplace else. That's our last homeland. What about us? This is genocide for us. Breathing this in, getting the cancer and everything. Next one. So, that Riley Pass mine and all those mines up here, the 106, they go directly onto the Standing Rock Reservation. The Morrow River goes directly onto the Cheyenne River Reservation. All that dust, all over here. It also soaks into the groundwater for the aquifers. Now I'm going to head south. We were up here, northwestern South Dakota. I'm going to head south, down here. Remember, this is my QW camp. A corner of it touches the Cheyenne River. And South Dakota is famous for Mount Rushmore, the Shrine of Democracy. There we are. The Shrine of Democracy. Democracy. We usually say hypocrisy, but
How about patriarchy?
yep, Mount Rushmore. It's right there. Where you want to? Can you back up, or do you want to try it? See, right there in the Black Hills. It's about right there. I live about 25 miles away in Rapid City, and Mount Rushmore is just right there. I talked to our senators and our representatives years ago about getting help with all these abandoned mines. Because Mount Rushmore, look at how close it is to these. And I said, as the crow flies, it's about 30 or 35 miles from these mines. But the senators and the representatives, aides, we only have one representative, because we only have 800,000 people. We do have 2 senators. They still didn't take that away. So I talked to them, their aides, of course, you know, we don't get to talk. Well, in my state, sometimes I do get to talk to them. They said, we don't want the people to know about this. What about the tourists? They won't come see Mount Rushmore. That's what our congressional people think. They won't come see Mount Rushmore. So what if all their constituents die? What if they die? You know, they don't care about us, of course. But what happens, you know? We're the ones that vote for them. You know, and here they say, no. The tourist dollar, because these are such poor states. They're agricultural states. They're very poor. South Dakota is the poorest one of all. Agriculture, economically, I mean, you know, everybody has 2 jobs and the minimum wage, $7 an hour, $7.50 an hour. It's a right-to-work state, so nobody can make unions. It's a Republican, it's a red state. All of these are red states. So it's really, really difficult for ordinary people in this area. Okay. And there it is. The tourist attraction, you know, 2 to 3 million people come to see this every year. Okay, close by it, what I said, 30 to 35 miles away from Mount Rushmore. This is the beginning when you go drive in there. The Mount Rushmore would be about right over here. Jump over that hill right there, that mountain right there, and you'll have Mount Rushmore. This is all part of the Black Hills. What you are beginning to see is an abandoned uranium mine. Next one. And here it is. It's called the Darrow Pits. You can drive down inside of the pickup trucks. And here's the road right here. It's huge. The Darrow Pits mine. This was built in the late 60s. In the early 70s, then the company just walked away. Next one. Again, the Darrow Pits. Abandoned uranium mine. This is one. There's 169 of them right there. This is one. Next one. This is also what happens in these open pit mines. When it rains or when it snows, then you have water accumulate in the low places. There are a few plants that will still grow, even though it's very radioactive. But if you remember those ones before, look at right here, hardly anything will grow. Of course, it's too radioactive. They're not going to grow. But I always feel bad whenever I see these. There's no warning sign on this one at all. There's no sign telling anybody that this is an abandoned uranium mine. I feel bad because the wild birds and the wild game that might come here, but especially the birds flying over, and where western South Dakota is a migratory path for both eastern and western birds. And so you get all kinds of birds that come through there. And this mine is real close to the Cheyenne River. It is a nesting site. There's nesting sites there for the eagles, for bald eagles. We have other whooping cranes. They also come through there. There's a lot of other ones. So I always feel bad for the birds because they'll think they can stop there. There probably is no life inside of it. Thanks. Here, that runoff from that Darrow Pits mine, it goes down into a low place. A cow. Here's 3 more cows laying down. The ranchers close by these mines who lease, this is private lease. On federal lands, then they can have federal leasing for their cattle. They feed their cattle copper sulfate. They feed them copper sulfate so they will have these dark brown colors. Otherwise, their fur will be gray. Up further north where I showed you, the Riley Pass mine, used to be sheep country. There used to be a lot of sheep ranchers up there. but now the radioactive has gotten into the grass so much that all the sheep, their immune systems are real compromised, they get sick real easy and they die. So all the sheep ranchers had to quit having any sheep. They switched to cattle, but with cattle they have to feed them copper sulfate so they'll have a nice pretty color so they can sell them at the cattle market, you know. If they have a great color, they're not going to sell them. And when they eat the grass that has radiation in it, it goes directly to their muscles. So I just tell people, every time you eat a McDonald's hamburger that comes out of South Dakota, bring your Geiger counter. This, not only does it affect the surface water, but it also affects the aquifers. Because we are such an arid area, the surface water, I mean, rivers can dry up. Our rivers are tiny compared to what you have out here. You'd probably call it a creek or a stream, but it's our river. And what happened, though, is that where all of these mines were at is shale. And shale has cracks and shale leaks. And Tennessee Valley Authority wanted to come in there and do some mining, but they did a study first. And what they found out was that the test results, this was in 1980, the test results indicate that the two aquifers are hydrologically connected via one general leakage through the Fuson Shale, and two direct pathways, probably in the form of numerous old pre-TVA unplugged exploration boreholes. What they did before they started mining was to drill exploration wells, exploration boreholes. But they weren't little tiny things like this. They were huge. They go down 600 to 800 feet deep, and they're huge. They're not marked, they're not capped, they're wide open, and there's no warning signs. Next one. And this is an exploration borehole. Can you see the man's feet? Can you see his legs? His legs are right here. Here's his jeans. Here's his shoe, his tennis shoe. Here's his other jeans. Here's his other tennis shoe. This is a borehole. It's big enough for a man to fall into. This was from a study by one of the professors from South Dakota School of Mines and Technology. SDSM&T, South Dakota School of Mines and Technology, is a very prestigious engineering and mining university. And Professor Harry Ron, he did this, I think it was in 1984, is when he did this study, a reconnaissance inventory of environmental impacts of uranium mining in the Edgemont Mining District, Fall River County, South Dakota. I went to visit him about 8 years ago because there's another mining company who wants to come in. They don't want to do open pit mining, they want to do in situ recovery, similar to fracking. And in situ recovery, they drill a well hole, they put a well in there, and then they have all around it other wells. And then in this middle well hole, they put a dissolving agent, and that dissolving agent then dissolves the uranium.
Into the water table.
Into the water table. And then the other wells pull it up. Pull it up. And every place in the world where they've done ISR or ISL, in situ leach or in situ recovery mining, they have never been able to get the aquifers back to their original state, nor have they been able to predict when an accident is going to happen. In Wyoming, there right now are 4 active ISL, at least 4 that I know of, active ISL mines. One of those mines had a crack in their pipe so that dissolving agent was going out, spreading that uranium radiation all over, and they never reported it for a month. And these, in Wyoming and South Dakota, Nebraska too, all the mining companies are allowed to self-report. So they have a spill. Well, maybe we'll report it next month, or maybe we'll report it, you know, down the road. All these states have, the laws are horrible, horrible, horrible. Montana's pretty good, and North Dakota's getting better. But Wyoming and South Dakota, forget it. And what they do is they look at each other's laws. Oh, I like theirs better. Let's do theirs because then we don't have to do so much. You know? So this company that's trying to come in, we've been fighting them for all these years. I don't know. They're a Canadian company too, and we have a lot of Canadian companies that come down and then they mine, and then all of a sudden the price goes up, and boom, they're gone. They go back to Canada, and that's it. We're stuck. And they don't pay a lot for the reclamation efforts. There's a mine right now in the Black Hills. It was a former gold mine called the Brome Mine. It was a Canadian company. They couldn't mine it anymore. I mean, they were going bankrupt, so they left. So now who's paying for the cleanup? It's a Superfund site. Taxpayers, including South Dakota taxpayers, for that.
You only get a lot of population based on the money.
Right. Okay, next one, Tim. Now you are entering my POW camp. Entering Pine Ridge Indian Reservation. I wanted to show you a little bit of this so you could see the distances and see what our area looks like. It's mostly grassland. If there are trees, then you know there's water there. And this is right at the northwestern tip of Pine Ridge Reservation. And so we're just now entering it. And this little village here is called Red Shirt Village. Next one. Some more pictures of Red Shirt Village. No industry there or anything. Some more, just housing. There's about 100, 105 people live there. Next one. Just in that little village. The only thing they have there in that village is a school. That's their school. That's all. The housing in the school. No convenience store, no post office, no anything else. That's Red Shirt Village. Next one. They can't use their well water. EPA said they can't use their well water. This is their well house, Red Shirt well house. It's been like this for years and years because they can't use their well water. It goes into an aquifer that has naturally occurring uranium. How many years did they drink it before the EPA found that out? Anyway, they can't use their well water. Well, they wanted to do, you can do the next one. They wanted to do, they called me and they said, can we use our river? Can we use our river water to water our community garden? And, you know, they'd have to either haul it up or get a pump and somehow get it up to their garden, this little community. And I said, well, let me come do a test on it, because I was already worried. I knew that there was already uranium coming in from Wyoming, and I knew about all those 106 mines that were just west of this. So I said, let me do a water test first. So when I got there and I did the water test, I noticed there were no water spiders, there were no water bugs, there were no ducks, there were no fish jumping. It was a beautiful evening when I went to get my water test. And I thought, this looks like a dead river to me. So I said to the people, I said, can I come back and bring some big nets? I would like to do an aquatic study. I'm a biologist. I'm a biologist and a physical scientist. I said, I want to do an aquatic study. And I meant for them to have somebody on that side, somebody on this side, and we would pull this net. I get there and these teenage boys jump in the water. I know. I said, please don't do that. But I didn't have my results back yet, so I couldn't stop them. I couldn't say for sure, you know, this is a radioactive river. So they jumped in the water, and these are all my relatives too. They jumped in the water, and then they started going, and we went 2 places, and they walked like 75 yards, 100 yards maybe. And next one. Oops, there we go again. We're getting back to this. I know, I don't know why this keeps doing. This is another side of that well. But, and again, the well. This is where the river is. This is the Cheyenne River. Back here where these trees are, that's where the river is. Otherwise, there's not going to be any trees. Okay, next one. And this is the Cheyenne River. And this is the one where we did the water test and water study. And next one. This is what we found in those 2 places where we walked. 1 crayfish, another crayfish at the second one, 1 catfish minnow, and 10 skipjack minnows. And that's all. That's all. And that river used to have turtles and fish and catfish and all kinds of different water life. And now it has probably nothing. If they were able to, if those little guys were able to live. The next one. This is a media event. This is a media event in South Dakota. This is a big media event in South Dakota. We only have 2 TV stations in western South Dakota, so this is a big media event. They both came. This is the man who invited me to come. He lives in this community. I should have showed you his house where he lived, but anyway. His name is Everett Porthunder. He happens to be my cousin too. I'm probably related to everybody up High News. But we, when he was the one that asked me, would you come? Can we use the river water? And I said, let me test it. And when I tested it, I said no. And when we found out what we found, they realized. And so he also, what happens also with those big trees like here, they're cottonwood trees. That's what we have, cottonwood trees. All of a sudden, a big old healthy looking branch would just boom, fall off. For no reason at all, fall off. So one fell off, and there was a nest of red-tailed hawk babies in that nest. And so he picked it up, he took it home, and with his grandsons, he keeps his grandsons, some of his grandsons, they took it home, and then they would feed it grasshoppers and bugs and, you know, whatever they could find to feed these, their own food, you know, to help feed these baby hawks, red-tailed hawks. And then he set a line in that river. This was still before the results came back. He set a line in the river. And I told him, I said, if you guys catch any fish, let me know right away. We need to get autopsies done on these fish. I want to find out what's going on. So he set a line in the river, and he forgot I asked him to do that. And he caught a little fish, not very big. He caught a fish, and so he chopped it up, and those babies were hungry, so he fed it to the babies, and by the next morning they were all dead. Oh. So he knew that river was radioactive. And why we wanted everybody to know was because people go there to swim. They go there to just, you know, hang out by the river because it's cooler in the summer. We have 100 and 110, 115 degree temperatures in the summer. Of course, we have minus 30, minus 40 in the winter too. And it's getting hotter. Our global warming, our temperatures are getting hotter. Last year, up to 120, 120 some. Wow. So it's getting hotter. So the people that live, like poor people like this, there's no, you know, the unemployment rate in this town is probably 90%, 85, 90%. If there is any work, it would be at the school. So they wanted to warn the people, and so they made this sign next to it. This is a homemade sign. You see just a piece of plywood, yellow paint, caution nuclear radioactive river, the nuclear sign, the warning sign, radioactive sign. They made the sign and they put it on the river, and we had the media event, you know. Let me know right away. We need to get autopsies done on these fish. I want to find out what's going on. So he set a line in the river, and he forgot I asked him to do that. And he caught a little fish, not very big. He caught a fish, and so he chopped it up, and those babies were hungry, so he fed it to the babies, and by the next morning they were all dead. Oh. So he knew that river was radioactive. And why we wanted everybody to know was because people go there to swim. They go there to just, you know, hang out by the river because it's cooler in the summer. We have 100 and 110, 115 degree temperatures in the summer. Of course, we have minus 30, minus 40 in the winter too. And it's getting hotter. Our global warming, our temperatures are getting hotter. Last year, up to 120, 120 some. Wow. So it's getting hotter. So the people that live, like poor people like this, there's no, you know, the unemployment rate in this town is probably 90%, 85, 90%. If there is any work, it would be at the school. So they wanted to warn the people, and so they made this sign next to it. This is a homemade sign. You see just a piece of plywood, yellow paint, caution nuclear radioactive river, the nuclear sign, the warning sign, radioactive sign. They made the sign and they put it on the river, and we had the media event, you know, and we were so proud because now we were hoping that people would be warned. But one of our elders in that community got scared, and this is where you talked about fear, and fear can make people do crazy things. He happened to be a sailor in the 1950s when they were doing nuclear testing in the South Pacific. And he learned, he read, and he got so scared. And every time he sees this symbol, his trauma comes back and he gets so scared. And so he went to the tribal government, take that sign down, take that sign down. Because he was an elder, respected elder. So they took the sign down. And I called him, I talked to him on the phone, and I said, please, we need it up there to warn the people. And he said, no, that's too dangerous. I said, that's right. it's too dangerous. That river is too dangerous. The people should not go in there. It's too dangerous. That's why we put the sign up. No, I don't want it up there. So we got some little plastic signs. One of our allies in Colorado, they sent us these little plastic signs that say, warning radioactive river. So we would go put them up at all the places on the bridge, you know, on this side and on that side, we'd put them up. And a few days later, they'd be gone. And a few days later, the tribal government would call me and say, Charmaine, we have your signs. I'd go pick them up, and on my way home, I'd be putting them back out there, you know. But they're gone right now, and we might have to go put some more up as it gets close to summer.
Do you have a sense that somehow the word has pretty much gotten out through the whole area and the community? And what are people's reactions in general to that? Or what's the range?
This is getting a little bit off of the abandoned mines, but that's okay. In our region, this big region I'm talking about, there are 17 tribes altogether that live here, including Nebraska and parts of Minnesota, North Dakota, Montana, Wyoming, and South Dakota. There's 9 right in South Dakota by itself. There is an association of all the chairmen of those 17 reservations. It's called the Great Plains Tribal Chairmen's Association. I went to them with a similar to what I'm telling you, but more than what I'm telling you. I'm only talking about abandoned mines tonight. And so then they passed a resolution declaring all the reservations to be nuclear-free zones. So that was really, really good. They understand, and they trust my work. But I'm an old lady, and I taught a lot. I taught school here and there, and you know, and I've been a writer for years. So, and they know I'm a scientist, and they trust my work. And if I say, in our culture, the penalty for lying is death. So if I lie, I die. So they know that I'm a traditional person. I believe in our culture, and even though I'm a scientist, educated, usually when they're educated, they get too colonized. But for some reason, I was lucky. I had a great grandma, you know, and not great grandma. She was great. My grandma was great, and she taught me a lot. And anyway, so the tribes know. If I talk about what she said at the beginning about the National Guard, we had petitions at the big powwow, and we have petitions all over the res in the libraries and everything, having people sign asking the governor, do not let those soldiers go into go into the Buffalo Gap National Grasslands. It's too radioactive. So yeah, they know. They believe it and they know, but we also have to follow our culture and be respectful to our elders.
But you're an elder.
I'm an elder, but I mean, these are elders like in their 80s, 90s. I have to respect them. Okay. Yes. We have the highest cancer rates in the country. This is from the ESPE report, ESPEY, ESPE, blah, 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 a whole bunch of other names on it, you know, but it's the ESPE report. It was done for the Indian Health Service. Since I couldn't get CDC to come in, then I thought, okay, I'm going to try to get cancer studies and birth defects, all these. This is a cancer study, all regions, all races, way up at that top, that blue, all U.S. races, all IHS regions, Alaska, the east, over here in the east, northern plains where we are, Pacific Coast, southern plains, and the southwest. These are just from the Indian Health Service statistics. Next one. I have put it down into this so that you can see the comparison for our region, northern plains. Per 100,000 people, the rate for ours would be 84%. National would be 55%. Colorectal, 20%, ours is 28.6%. But when you drink water that has radiation in it, you're going to get kidney tumors, liver disease, colorectal cancer. Miscellaneous, 15.4. Miscellaneous, 22.8. Pancreatic cancer, other kinds of cancer. Liver cancer is really big. Prostate cancer, 10.9. All races, 15.3 in the northern Great Plains. The only one that we have less of is breast cancer, 11.6 compared to 14.8 nationally. But culturally, for our people, breastfeeding, our people breastfeed more than the national. And culturally, I've heard before, I've read studies that when you breastfeed, you'll have less likely chance to get breast cancer. And so our breast cancer rate is lower But these are for just the males comparison and then the female comparison. But it's called the SB report, ESPEY. I think it came out in 2007, and it's a big report, 40, 50 pages long. So I just used that one table. This is yours truly here in my American clothes, not my shawl, at the Black Hills Powwow. The Black Hills Powwow is the last powwow that we have in our region. It's usually the first weekend in October. There are from 1 to 2,000 dancers, and there's about 10,000 people in the audience. It's held at the Rapid City Civic Center. It's an indoor powwow. It's a beautiful thing to go to, and we always table there every year. And every year, because of the work we do, they always let us come into the arena at the grand entry when all the dancers first make their first entry into it. And they always put us kind of up there in the front, you know, with our message, because they believe in the work we do, Defenders of the Black Hills. And probably most of them are defenders of the Black Hills themselves. And so we have this sign. This sign came from another environmental group in Colorado who is also fighting the same uranium mining company we are. And because we used to operate primarily on donations, I mean like $10. We have a raffle, you know. If you want a raffle ticket, give me your name and money, and I'll give you something. And we have a lot of local artists who donate their stuff. Our raffle prizes some of them are museum quality. They're just gorgeous, gorgeous. We do our raffle every year, and we start it during the Black Hills Powwow. And it usually goes until December when there's a big basketball tournament. But this year we're letting it go until March 16th because I'm here. They wanted to extend it longer. We were supposed to have a powwow on Valentine's Day, but I came here instead, so they said, no, we want to wait till you get back. So this is no uranium mining in Great Sioux Nation territory. You saw those 1851, 1868. That is our territory. That's not our reservation. That's not our little POW camp. That's our territory. And that's what the elders have given me orders. You get that land back. We want that title. Okay. I pray a lot. This is our website, defendblackhills.org. You don't have to put Joomla on there anymore. defendblackhills.org. We had to do that because the uranium mining companies were hacking our website. They hacked it twice. But we found out, how we found out was we put a freebie website on, you know, and we wanted to watch who's going to put pop-ups. And the pop-ups were from uranium mining companies or guys that sold equipment for uranium mining companies. So if you go to defendblackhills.org, you can read a lot about us. We won the Nuclear Free Future Award in 2007 in Salzburg, Austria. And if you saw our financials, and they're on there too, last year we operated on a little over $10,000. So we do a lot of work with a little bit of money. But our senators, our Congress people are pro-uranium mining. Pro-uranium mining. And so I came here to ask your help. You saw that yellow paper that's been going around that says, that's the one. That's the one. She has it right there. That yellow paper is a federal bill, and it's to clean up all the abandoned uranium mines in the whole country. Up where we live, there's 3,272. In the southwest, where the Navajo Nation lives, there's about 1,300. Theirs are underground, but they still need to be cleaned up because it's still affecting the aquifer. Ours are above ground, and so that dust comes over here too. That dust comes on the food that you eat. It's hurting all of our people, not just our people, all the people. For us though, it's genocide. It's genocide. It's our last homeland. We will go no place else. The Black Hills are sacred. That's where, if we're going to die, we will die in our homeland. And so it's genocide for me and my nation. And so we need a cleanup of all these abandoned uranium mines. And that yellow paper, that's it. We wrote it, but we need a sponsor. I heard yesterday you have a guy named Jim McGovern. South Dakota used to have a guy named McGovern too, George McGovern. He ran for president way back in the 70s. He's a good guy. And I hope your McGovern is a good guy
Jim
too.
McGovern used to work
He used to
for,
work for.
He used to work for George McGovern, for our McGovern.
in Washington.
Yeah.
But they're not related.
They're not related, okay. So I heard you have Jim McGovern here. Talk to him. We need your help. We need sponsors for this bill. We need this bill to pass Congress. They're right now, at the Chicago meeting, I learned that there is $10 billion left in the Department of Energy. $10 billion for uranium mine waste cleanup. It was supposed to be for Yucca Mountain. If we can get this bill right now, there you got a selling point. You got a selling point. The Department of Energy already has $10 billion for mine waste. That's these. So the money's there. Get your representative to sponsor it. If he does, give me the HR number. I want it, and then I will advertise it as far and wide as I can. It also calls for a moratorium on any more mining until they clean up the messes they've already made. Calls for a moratorium, yes.
Any idea of what percentage of the voting age public votes?
In South Dakota,
Yeah.
I don't know.
How do they clean it up? Do they bury it? Do they cover it?
They have to bury it and they have to cover it, but there's certain ways that they have to do it for that, to stop that radiation from coming up. I know they did one in Germany successfully, and it was about half the size of that Roddy Pass mine. Roddy Pass mine is about 3/4 of a mile long by a half a mile wide. They did one in Germany, half that size. Do you want me to tell you how much it cost?
Sure.
$50 billion. $50 billion to clean one. So it's going to cost a lot of money, but it has to get started. It's got to start someplace. And if you stop the mining, you're going to stop the nuclear power plants. Yeah, they go together. We are at the beginning of that nuclear cycle. We are the ones that are getting hurt there, and you're getting hurt over here with your nuclear power plants. We have to join together. We have to. We have to stop this insanity. That's what it is. It's insanity. No common sense. Why would you release something that was so dangerous for hundreds of thousands of years? Why would you do that? There's no common sense. So we need to stop the mining, and we need to stop, that will help stop the nuclear power plants.
Just to be specific, did you write this, or is this already a bill?
It's not already a
It
bill.
doesn't exist, right?
Pardon?
It only exists on these papers.
Right.
We have to get this to McGovern and say,
Yes.
we want you to do this,
Yes.
introduce this in Congress.
Yes.
It doesn't have a number or anything
Yes.
at the moment.
And if he
Okay.
does, he will save a nation.
What?
My nation. If he does, he will save my nation.
Okay, we'll tell him.
Yes, tell him that. And I'll come see him if he wants me to.
Did Chernobyl ever do any remediation or cleanup in the Dina mines?
I don't know.
Nothing.
I don't know.
Nothing
That's
done
south. They're about 1,000 miles south of us.
I
the Dina mines.
I think the only reason I ask is because they started earlier and they got pressure there, and I just was wondering if they learned how to do anything.
I don't know. Kerr-McGee was the one that was with the Riley Pass mine. They declared bankruptcy, and so then they stopped cleaning it up. That was the only mine that they tried to clean up, Kerr-McGee and the Forest Service. And that's when they put up that sign. I don't know how much, if it cost $12 million, that sign.
Is it affecting Yellowstone yet?
Yellowstone is further west. It's about 600 miles west of us, Yellowstone. Yellowstone River, though, there was a big oil spill on the Yellowstone River a year ago, maybe? Yes, back then.
The University of Massachusetts has a school of, they train nuclear engineers. Is there any message we can get to them?
They could come out and check these if they want, give us more information.
I've seen their presentations and they try and say that it's safe.
No dose
From
is
UMass.
safe.
These guys are from UMass.
Yeah, no dose
Young,
is safe.
smart guys, well-dressed.
Right, I know. We have a school, Mines and Engineering College too, and they try to say it's safe, and no dose is safe as far as I'm concerned. Yeah.